Board Member Catlin is absent. Board Member Doyle. Board Member Howe.
Here.
Board Member Larkin.
Present.
Board Member Lonick.
Here.
Board Member McClure. Here. Board Member Springer.
Here.
And Chair Reagan.
Here. We need to approve the agenda with the one correction or addition under new business. We need to put down budget review under 7A, budget review. And we need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
Mike Springer, is there a second? Dean Lonick, is there discussion? All those in favor of the change in the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and next, item 3 is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Everyone's got a copy of that. And I'll need a motion for that.
So moved.
Cliff, and a second.
Yes.
Brian Doyle. And is there a discussion or corrections on the minutes from last meeting? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Treasurer's report.
Current balance is $439,928.05. The summer collection is coming to an end. When it's said and done, we'll probably have collected around $438,000 in summer TIPA revenue, of which about $80,000 of that is industrial facilities, IFTs.
Say that again, the last part.
Of the 439 that we'll collect for summer TIPA, about 83,000 is from IMTs. They get a 50% tax break.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you said like ISD or something. Okay. Any questions for Sue? Need a motion for the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Brian, is there a second? A second. Mike? And any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And public comments for items not on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, old business, downtown development plan update.
There have been 2 stakeholder meetings. There are 2 more that are planned, and a letter is going to be going out this week. The next one, which will be October 20. Right? Yeah, October 20 and November 23rd. No, maybe it's the other way around. Steve's going to look it up. Yeah, October 23rd and then November 20th. But the letter's going to go out on it. It's going to be, the format's going to be a little different than it has been in the past. We had some discussion about the last meeting and had some discussion about trying to do some breakout sessions based on certain topics. So there will be sort of an overall discussion, and then you'll be able to go to a table and talk about parking. You'll be able to go to a different table and talk about maybe landscaping and arts and that kind of stuff. You'll be able to go to a different table to talk about walkability. So I think they're planning on 4 different breakout tables. In addition, they did meet with MDOT, and actually I was a part of that meeting, and it was a great discussion with MDOT about possibilities and those kinds of things. So you're going to see some of that reflected, and there's a better understanding now from MDOT about what is possible and what's not possible. And then they were just completing this week some meetings with the DPW, with Lowell Power, with the police department, with the fire department to talk about sort of their roles and some of the things that they have to do with downtown and future planning and what their future plans are and things like that. So those agency meetings have occurred, and I think everything is now geared toward October 20 and then October 23rd. And then November 20, and then still trying to have a final report to you in December. If we don't make it December, January easily. So that's where we're heading.
Okay.
you'll be, like I said, you'll be getting a letter in the next meeting this week.
Okay, any questions for Mark? Okay, move on to the South Monroe proposed parking lot.
You had asked, and I passed around this map that shows you the actual parcels, and it's a combination of new technology and old technology. The parcel lines and the aerial photos are what we have through our Regis system. But then I took a Sharpie and outlined the parcels for you that we've been talking about. Parcel A is the parcel that was purchased, I think, 2 years ago. The DDA appropriated the money to purchase that parcel. And parcel B is a parcel that is owned by King Milling. Parcel C is a parcel that is owned by Superior Furniture. And then parcel D, I don't know if you can see it in your copy, but that small square, there's like a little dotted line along the building there, because the real parcel D is an L shape, is a large L-shaped parcel that includes part of the Superior Furniture building. But what's been under discussion is just that corner lot.
Isn't it C, the granite company?
Behind the granite.
I'm sorry, C is the granite company. Thank you. Yes, C is the granite company, and then D is Superior Furniture. So anyway, those are the parcels under discussion. There's been some discussion not only with the city, but with the private property owners. And I think things are starting to move forward a little bit in terms of trying to figure out how property swaps and that kind of stuff can occur. In the meantime, Williamson Works did conduct the survey in that area, and they just sent me right before this meeting, a potential layout for a full parking lot in that area. I had a bunch of questions on it, so I didn't bring it with me, so I'm going to bat that back and forth with them a little bit. But by your next meeting, we'll be having a discussion on what a full parking lot would look like there, and then could we begin to construct part of that full parking lot just on the property of the city owns right now.
Okay. Greg, you have some input on this?
Yes, I just wanted, Greg Canfield, wanted to share. I currently have parcel D under contract with Brent Slagle to purchase that. There was some hesitation on how quickly the city could make something happen there, and a problem with the price and appraisal. There have been other individuals interested in purchasing the Superior property, and at this point I could purchase that for $25,000 from Brent, and I have a down payment on that. He is surveying and splitting that property, and I will be purchasing that probably within 10 days as soon as the paperwork is complete. My concern was if another buyer came along for the Superior building and didn't want to sell that corner, that changes the whole parking lot so much back there that I went ahead and pulled the trigger on that parcel. And I talked with Jeff from the Granite Company about making the trade with him to then end up that I would own the Button Factory parcel. I mentioned to Mark the Moose building that we currently own. I would like to put, the back of that building is pretty rough and pretty ugly. There's a lot of different bricks on there, and it will turn into the front of the building almost from the parking lot back there. I would like to put balconies on the back of possibly, more buildings in addition to the Moose property in the future. I would like to trade the Button Factory property to the city for some additional space across the entire block that the building owners could own a little bit more back there and put up balconies. Currently, I think that the property owners have 7 or 8 feet back there that their structures are already on from the back of the building. Another somewhere 13 to 15 feet would give about 20 feet behind the building for a nice balcony that would come out 20 feet. And then at that point, there are 7 spaces across that block, the Moose being a double. I would attempt to have the building owners purchase their piece or as a group, that we would all chip in, that I'd get my 25 back that I spent and spread it across the back of the building if the other property owners are interested in acquiring, a small space behind there. And then at that point, the parking lot could go further out from that point. I just was concerned that something might happen and we'd lose the opportunity to make these swaps, and the city was kind of limited in what they could pay for it. And in the big picture here, another $10,000 to make it happen was worth a gamble on my part. So that's, where I hope to see this going, and we got to move through this. But at this point, I have a signed contract with Brent that it'd be tough for him to back out of. He doesn't want to back out of it, but I just felt it was important to ensure for the parking lot back there that things would happen like this.
Did you find out if that right of way is really there?
I haven't, no. I mean, at this point, I'm just working on, acquiring the property, and then we'll have to sort out the easement. Jeff is real concerned about that easement. I think that the easement has been terminated further back already, but I don't know that for a fact. So I think that he could build a building on there even with the easement in place. The railroad's never going to come back and put a spur in there. So we have to iron that out yet. And possibly, while the city is working on the railway right of way in their spot, maybe we could include this and make them all disappear together. But we're just wanted to move forward with this while it was still possible. So there's the short spiel on private property owners.
Okay, great, thanks very much for taking the initiative and doing that on your own. And I know the wheels of government sometimes move real slow, so this may expedite it significantly, I think. So.
And if I can add to that, I mean, first of all, you saw my commitment to maintaining confidentiality among private discussions that are occurring, and I wasn't going to have that unless the private owners were willing to share that. I will tell you that part of, I had said that I received a draft of the parking lot. It did not include that 20 feet, and so that's what I'm going back and doing, is saying, okay, what if we take 20 feet off from the back of the buildings? How do we redesign it then? What does that look like? And so that's why I'm sending it back to them to try to figure out how we plan for that as well.
Would that be like all of the alley, or is it past the alley then?
It's actually a little less than the alley. I think that there's probably, it's an additional, they already own 7 feet or 8 feet. It's probably another 14 or 15 feet. It probably still would leave 5 feet of the alleyway there, but it does take most of the current
Yeah,
alleyway.
because I know Mark and I have talked about it before when we went back there to do something for the whole back, because when we talked about the handicap ramp and all of that, so it would be nice back there to have it all kind of unison together and look better.
Well, and he's right. I mean, the back is going to become the front. When we put parking back there, and that is going to become the front. If you then think in the future, if there's ever somehow some kind of a trail connector, and somehow, people are coming off from the trail and coming into that, there again, the back is going to become the front. And it'll be a great area when all is said and done. And the issue with I always get a little sensitive when we talk about the wheels of government moving slowly, because we move as fast as we can. But the issue is that the city cannot pay more than fair market value for property, and we're bound by that, and it's a Michigan constitutional issue. It's not even a city issue. It's a municipality issue.
Okay, any other questions on that topic at all? Okay, next item is, needed to make any actions on that, and that was just an informational update. So
Just information.
correct. Okay, so we'll move on to new business and the budget review that was added to the agenda.
I passed out for you, these are pages out of the entire city budget document, and this is partially for new members. It's good information. It gives you a history of a lot of the projects that the DDA has done since its inception. But also, if you go to page 51 in the document, I just wanted to briefly go over how the budget is structured and kind of keep that on the forefront for you, because as we finish the downtown development plan and as we start to get into some discussions and some long-term planning, it's good for you to at least have the base knowledge of how the budget works, so that when we start planning dollars for the future, then we already have that base knowledge to work from. The way this page 51 reads is when you look down the left-hand side, there's revenue and expenditures, and there's different types of revenue and different types of expenditures. And then there's the net of the revenue and expenses. And then fund balance, and fund balance, beginning and ending fund balances, is basically that's the cash that we have in the bank, or the cash that we plan to have in the bank at the end of the year. So the budget is, what are we going to take in, what are we going to spend during the year, and then the fund balance is, what do we have left over in the bank at the end of the year. And then that percent of expenses is it's something that I have on all city funds, because auditors will suggest that you have anywhere from 15 to 20% in fund balance to be able to cover for emergencies. That I think is a number that you have to apply based on the fund, based on the circumstances of the fund, and it could be higher, it could be lower, again based on the fund itself. But it's a benchmark that you look at. Then looking at the columns, there's the history for the 11-12 fiscal year, 12-13, and our fiscal year starts July 1st and it ends June 30th. So there's 2 prior fiscal years worth of information. There's the 13-14, and remember this is from when we were working on and adopting a budget for the new fiscal year. So the activity is only through March. I will be able to generate financial reports for you that will give you updated activity, and we can do that as we move forward. But this is just showing the 13-14 budget, the activity that was through the year. We works on projections and put those projections in there. And then the proposed column is if we're going to make any adjustments in that current fiscal year. That 13-14 year is closed. And then the proposed and adopted 14-15 fiscal year is the current fiscal year, and it's the budget that's been adopted for this year. And then we try to do targets for the next 4 years, because we try to plan out over, basically a 5-year budget. We try to plan out over the next 5 years as best as we can, just so we can see where we think things are trending. Looking at just the 14-15 adopted column, primary source of revenue, we receive some interest, but the primary source of revenue is through tax capture. And that's where within the DDA district, there's a certain amount of the taxes, not only from the city, but from county, ISD, various villages that are out there, that the growth in that value since the DDA was created in, I think, 1993, 92. That growth in that value is captured and then used by the DDA to fund whatever it chooses to fund as part of a development plan in accordance with state law. I mean, there are some limitations on what you can fund and what you can pay for. So that's how the revenue flows in. You'll see a drop in revenue from one year to the next. That's because there was a change. I think it was maybe it was later. Anyway, there was a change in the law that exempted school millages local school millages from being captured within that tax capture. But it also said if you have any outstanding bonds, then you can continue to capture that school millage until those bonds are paid off. And it was last year that we made the final payment on bonds that were outstanding through the DDA. And so that school millage had been captured, but for the current fiscal year, it's no longer being captured. So that's the revenue side of the equation. Then the expense side is, I'm going to skip capital outlay right now and come back to it. But maintenance is work that's been done or is being done within the DDA district. It's mostly paying for supplies and the DPW crews who are working on various things within the DDA district. Administration is typically it's paying for the cost of accounting and payroll and those kinds of things. We had a discussion 2 years ago. There's 4 hours a week of my time that comes out of administration. And then one of the reasons that that's so much larger in the current fiscal year than in previous fiscal years is 30,000 of that is to pay the consultants for the downtown development plan. And so that's why that budget is higher this year. You'll see next in the targets in the next 4 years, we dropped it back down. Promotions and marketing, that's primarily Liz's money. And a lot of that is, marketing, it's Christmas, it's Porta Johns, we had a discussion about a banner program, and so that banner program would come out of that. But that's promotions and marketing. Then the transfer out, there's been a commitment from the DDA to pay for 50% of the bond for City Hall. And so that's what that transfer out is that City Hall bond payment. So that's half of the City Hall bond payment. Going back up to capital outlay, essentially the way I build the budget is I look at that maintenance, administration, promotions, and the bond payment, and then whatever is left, we plug in capital outlay. And capital outlay is where we'll have, I think, the biggest part of our discussions over the next few months as we complete a downtown development plan. Let's talk about future projects. Let's talk about how we plan those out over 5, maybe even 10 years, what the cost might be for those, and then plan those future capital outlay dollars. And right now we have it plugged in terms of cash. We can have a discussion about borrowing if there are some bigger projects that we want to do. Maybe it's a combination of borrowing and cash, maybe it's not borrowing at all, or maybe it's totally borrowing. I mean, there's that whole wide gamut of options that are out there, and that's a discussion that we'll have to have and weigh the pros and cons. But capital outlay, I think, is where we'll zero in on our discussions over the next few months as we complete a downtown development plan. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over that budget. We have a couple of newer members. It's a good refresher for the folks that have been around for a while. And if you have any questions on the budget, we'd be glad to entertain that. Or if you have a question later on, shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'd be glad to research something for you or check it out.
When is the City Hall bond filled?
We had another, I think, 18 years off the top of my head. Yeah. We just refinanced, I think it was 2 years ago, on the City Hall bonds. It was a 30-year commitment. At about the 10-year mark, we refinanced. We saved over $500,000 in the refinancing process, and we also brought the payment was a very strange structure where about every 5 years it was increasing by $50,000, and then in about the last 5 years it had a dramatic drop to it. And what we did was we just flattened it, and then we tipped it slightly and backloaded it slightly so that we saved money on the payment in the front end. The $500,000 was just on interest and interest savings. But we reduced our payment on the front end, and so the total increase in the payment every year is anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000. And so we did that slight tip, not a bad increase over time, saved a bunch of money on interest, and I think we've made 2 payments since then, so I think it's about 18 years we still have to pay.
Okay, anything else for Mark? Any other questions? Okay, reports and member comments. No? I'm not done yet. Oh, good. Actually, I just want to thank Greg for, moving this process along. I hope that we can help out that block. There's been some, maybe people out there debating about that, but that's one of the few blocks that doesn't have any Main Street parking to speak of, really, think about it. And it might have been because of the business in those buildings at the time, and over the years, because I know at one time there was parking on Main Street on both sides, and that was removed and expedited the traffic and so on, and there wasn't a lot of protest at the time when they did, again, because of the type of business that was in those buildings at the time. So anything I think the city can do to help with the parking is going to be, in the long run, it's going to be beneficial for the city and those businesses to retain those businesses, because unless you're doing manufacturing or something there, you need some people, you need the public to be able to come in and out of those buildings. And just a reminder to the rest of the board, one of the big things that DDAs can do is help handicap parking or ramps to the buildings. So that should be, included with that, discussion as far as, when those rear entrances are renovated and fixed up to accommodate everybody that can get in there. That would be helpful.
Yeah, because what if all the building owners don't want to buy that part? What
Oh,
happens?
then
That's fine, then they can't dedicate and claim it as parking spots, they can't build a balcony on it past what they have. I think at $4,000 per building, it's a screaming deal, but if they don't, then that just drives the cost up to me for what I've got, that if we can make it work. If I have to pay $25,000 for a double building behind mine, it's worth it to me for that alone. But I think it benefits the whole block, and we can do some landscaping back there, possibly have a brick pathway or something. It really can be made attractive back there. I think that the owners will be interested. But if a particular building is not interested, then it just stays asphalt parking or whatever, and anybody can park there.
I have a question. At the last meeting, it seemed like we might be able to do something parking-wise back there before
the winter.
winter. Is there any chance of that, or is that pretty much a...
I think it's going to be tough. I was hopeful that we would be able to. What I saw initially from Williams and Works was that it was a net gain of 5 spaces. Could we lose the parallel parking spaces and maybe add 10? On top of that, they would flip the dumpster around, and the first thing they said was we might lose coming off from Main Street and then coming into the dumpster, we might lose that corner space there. And I said, well, why don't you just trim the dumpster? And they said, yeah, that's what our engineer suggested. And I said, well, listen to engineers and city managers. So we wouldn't lose that spot, but it's a net gain of 5. Not that 5 spots wouldn't be important, because they would, and I think and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to push and move ahead. But it's just, maybe it's back to that government, moves slowly. It doesn't really move that slowly, but it doesn't move maybe as quickly as we'd like it to sometimes.
Greg, are you putting the dumpster back where it was? Because it's gone right now.
The Moose, that was their dumpster that they moved out to their new location. And I should have shared this before, but the individual that lives in Lowell that currently manages another restaurant, not in Lowell but in the area, is moving forward with the restaurant plans, and their goal is to open there June 1st. And I was, I thought it was pretty optimistic to think that much was going to happen this fall, but if we can have that the minute the frost is out of the ground in the spring, to be getting that water main across there. And
it's important to know, yeah.
The application is into the chief of police for the liquor license, and this restaurant is going to happen here, and it's going to be a great thing for the community. There's a lot of excitement about it, and so the parking is, if we can have that thing ready to roll when the frost is out of the ground, and it may be optimistic, it may be July 1st. They want to make sure they're ready, and we're starting demolition on the building, but we will put a dumpster in the back for cleaning out the building short term, but I think the long-term plan is the dumpsters end up at the back of the parking lot and you leave the front for parking.
That's good to know. I think that helps with the design.
Okay.
Just a comment on Jim's comment. Jim said something to the effect of, unless it's manufacturing, then you need parking. I suggest to you that even if it's manufacturing, you need as much or more.
Stand corrected.
Thank you, Dee.
Is all the other sections here set? I mean, like the King Millen being negotiated, or are we all?
We're gonna, yeah, there's a lease.
Okay.
And we're gonna have some discussions there. The other pieces that I didn't identify, but that are just north of A and C, that, like that 023 and that 009, those two are very small parcels that are already owned by the city. And then you can see the alleyway that runs through there. And then the 008, is it? It's where the dumpster is.
Yeah.
That parcel is owned by King Milling, but it's part of the original lease on the veterans parking lot.
Okay, yeah, so once Greg's thing, this whole thing could happen.
I think so.
Good.
How does we have liquor licenses available? I thought there weren't any.
We have available in the within the DDA district. We have available within the DDA district what are called developmental liquor licenses, and Barry Getson, the police chief before Chief Buchla, had done quite a bit of work on identifying what may be available within the DDA district, and then Chief Buchla has picked up some of that work, and that's the application that he's talking about.
Okay.
Now, there are limitations on it in the sense that they're, I know they're location specific and they may even be business specific, and you have to, like, the business has to buy the license, but you can't transfer it like the normal liquor licenses.
The same one you flat built, the DDA.
Yeah, it's a developmental license, yep.
Okay.
They did it for like Grand Rapids and stuff. More licenses, more business.
And part of it is based on the amount of development that you had in the district within a certain period of time. There are some thresholds there, and actually thanks to what King Milling has done over the last couple of years, it's really increased the number of licenses that are available to us because of the value of that investment. So thank you very much. King Milling Brewery, is that correct?
No, we should at least get a beer out of it.
My preference is wheat beer anyway, so King Milling Brewery sounds great.
Okay, any other comments? Need to entertain a motion to adjourn?
No move.
Is there a second?
Second. No.
April? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Stay here.
When's the next meeting?